in both locations and will be replaced when temperatures allow. Business access is being maintained. Concrete work is planned in this area through early spring. Work will be completed intermittently as conditions allow. The 9th and 9th intersection reconstruction work is anticipated to begin in July. Learn more at 900southslc.com.
For more updates on this and other construction here and in and around the city, feel free to keep tuning in or check slc.gov/construction. For the interview this week, we're speaking to Sustainability Deputy Director Sophia Nicholas about an upcoming landscaping equipment exchange. Do you have questions? I know I do. Take it away, Sophia.
So as we all know, Salt Lake City does experience poor air quality. A lot of us are familiar with the wintertime air quality issues that we have, where we can see that haze when it's the peak of the inversion season. But we also have a growing problem in the summer with ozone pollution. Ozone is actually odorless, it's invisible, and it's formed by emissions that come out of our cars and our landscaping equipment and chemicals, and those chemicals, cleaners and other like paints and solvents. And those react under high temperatures and sunlight to form ozone. And ozone is a problem because it's basically, when you breathe it in, it's like a sunburn for your lungs. So the state of Utah, as well as Salt Lake City, is working hard to reduce emissions all year round, but we're definitely focusing a lot on what we can do in the summertime. So one of the ways that we can try to get a handle on those emissions is to electrify as much as possible. So whether that's electric vehicles, or electric appliances in your home, or electric landscaping equipment. So this is the 3rd year in a row that Salt Lake City is partnering with the State Division of Air Quality on an electric landscaping equipment exchange. So the past 2 years, it has been primarily targeted towards residential residents and people who are using lawnmowers just in their yards and their homes. But this year, the state has shifted gears, and they're going to be focusing on lawn care companies. And the reason for that is because these are the companies that are using equipment, sometimes even 7 days a week during the busiest times of the year. So this year, the electric landscaping equipment exchange will be focused on gas-powered string trimmers as well as leaf blowers. And any business, lawn care business that's registered along the Wasatch Front can apply to the program starting now. It's open right now at chargeyouryard.utah.gov. And go in there, fill out the application. You'll hear back, I think that the beginning April 28th, as to whether you got accepted into the program. There's detailed instructions on the website, chargeyouryard.utah.gov. And basically, lawn care businesses will be able to recycle their 2-stroke gas-powered leaf blowers and string trimmers and get up to $3,000 in credit available to purchase electric models. I think what a lot of people don't realize is just how polluting these 2-stroke pieces of equipment are. So for example, a gas-powered leaf blower that runs for an hour puts out the same amount of pollution as a car that drives 727 miles. So when you start to add that up across all of the leaf blowers that are in use, all of the string trimmers, you really start to see the impact that we can make by swapping those appliances out, or those pieces of equipment out, for their electric models. So I encourage any lawn care business to check out the website, chargeyouryard.utah.gov, sign up, and you'll find out if you were accepted into the program, and all the directions are on the website.
Hey everyone.
Welcome to the Salt Lake City Council meeting, the formal meeting at 7 p.m. Today, we're going to have 3 meetings in one, so join us for the ride. The Salt Lake City Council is going to start, then later on we're going to switch to the RDA meeting, and then later we're going to go to the Local Building Authority meeting. So just bear with us while we change hats, not physical hats, thank God, and let some of the staff know if you have any questions about the agenda items. And just to start, I want to welcome you. Happy to have you here in person. For those that are watching over Zoom or any of the other live feeds. So as we begin today, the formal meeting, we have a bit of a different agenda, as I mentioned to you, so bear with us. We can start right now with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you and welcome. Let me state some of the public meeting rules for all of us to abide by. Thank you for those that are joining us in person, for those that are joining us online. As we move through the agenda, I want to remind everybody some of the rules of decorum, which are in place to ensure that our meetings move along well, that everybody feels comfortable no matter what your viewpoint is. And a copy of the rules are right outside the door, and you can lift your hand if you want some. The staff can get you some. Some of those rules are also posted on the Zoom chat. That brings us to item A4, which is approving some of the council minutes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for the retreat of January 31st, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this item? So I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoras?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler? Yes. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Councilmember Petro, I believe she's not online, is she? Okay, that's a 6-0 and 1 absent. We're moving on to the next item, which is Mayor Mendenhall will present the proposed Salt Lake City budget.
Hi.
Hello.
Excuse me while I make a spot. Good evening. Thank you for giving me time to do this. I'm happy to be here and introduce my fiscal year 24 budget to you tonight. It's really an incredible time to be a Salt Laker. Our neighborhoods and our businesses are growing as a result of having the strongest economy in the nation here in Utah. Our residents continue to enjoy a quality of life that ranks among the top 10 cities nationwide. Our downtown is thriving, recovering from the pandemic faster than any other downtown in the country. And even though the city is growing, our air quality continues to improve. We all share the excitement and this electric atmosphere that's around our city right now and the infinite possibilities that are lying ahead. We are on the right track. Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, the Olympics, and the year-round benefits our residents can gain from these opportunities are knocking at our door. And while we may still dream of what that future looks like exactly, I've never been more confident in the strength of our city than I am today. The priorities of our community guided us through the challenges of the past 3 years. And today, thanks to the decisions we've made together, our vision for the future is clear, bright, and possible. Of course, we still have challenges, as many growing cities in the U.S. do, especially a critical housing shortage and caring for our unsheltered neighbors. We also face unique challenges, like our air quality and, of course, saving the Great Salt Lake. This year's recommended budget charts a path forward to further strengthen the foundation that we've been building, while recognizing the continued growth of our city population and our resident needs. As you'll recall from last year, we've initiated a 3-year budget strategy that is both fiscally responsible and prioritizes what is best for our residents and visitors based upon our revenues and the use of the city's healthy fund balance. We're now in the 2nd year of that 3-year strategy, and my recommended budget presents a balanced approach which will move the city forward with the flexibility to meet challenges that may lie ahead for us. This year, I'm proposing a general fund budget of $444,504,923. It marks a 4.4% increase, which is about $19 million over last year's budget, with the primary change there attributed to inflation. Our revenue from sales tax will be approximately $17 million more than what we anticipated last year, and we will realize an increase also from our interest rates on investments we have, which helps to balance those growing needs. However, we're also exercising caution as we work through the year ahead, with licensing and permitting slightly lagging behind the frenetic pace we'd seen building over the past 3 years. Approximately $8 million of this budget increase is a result of higher costs of labor, water, gas, and electrical procurement, as well as lingering supply chain constraints that were caused by the pandemic and are still affecting the economy today. Many cities across the nation continue to face a critical shortage of affordable housing, and we're not immune to that trend as the capital city of the fastest growing state in the nation. But we are making a tremendous difference. Our investments in affordable housing units since 2020 have net the largest increase in the city's history. In the last 3 years, we've invested more than $56 million towards affordable housing, with nearly $20 million awarded just last year alone. Our dollars have helped create more than 4,000 affordable units, and by the year's end, 7 more projects will either break ground or open, thanks to RDA investment. The entirety of what we've been able to do together marks a 413% increase in unit creation since 2020, and we're not done. This fiscal year, we'll continue to build a track record of creating additional housing opportunities by proposing the allocation of nearly $10 million between new investment and our ongoing commitment from the city and the RDA. And this is in addition to the $10 million in wealth-building affordable housing perpetual fund investment that you're considering right now in Budget Amendment 6. And we're also on the doorstep of more than 400 permanent supportive housing units coming online this spring and summer as a result of last fall's capital improvement program $6 million investment. I'll say this again because it's critical for everyone to understand that our commitment to lowering the costs of living in this capital city is real. Over the next month, you as a city council will consider a combined $20 million in city-led affordable housing investment. I'm confident that the first units of the Other Side Village, which is of course a first in our state tiny home community, will come online in the upcoming fiscal year. It's taken time as we've worked through tough environmental mitigation steps on the site, but the end result will undoubtedly be worth it. Homes, actual individual homes for people who have struggled for years with chronic homelessness, will finally have places of their own. Housing is the key to addressing the statewide homelessness crisis, but Salt Lake City also leads out in trying to connect unhoused people with services and keeping our public spaces clean and safe for all. In this budget, we will continue to invest in those resources by bolstering our Downtown Ambassador program, adding more social workers to our medical response teams, and providing tenant relocation and navigation services as identified in the Thriving in Place anti-gentrification and displacement work. The practicality of increasing these investments only amplifies the need to also strengthen our relationships with the county and the state partners to identify their much needed and long-term solutions to include additional shelter space, sufficient winter overflow plans, and the development of mental health and addiction treatment services. I am confident in our resolve to address homelessness. It's the most difficult issue facing the city, and I'm encouraged by the progress that we are making with our partners. As an air quality advocate, this budget proposal also continues the work of improving air quality using a variety of methods as we create new investments for our sustainable future. We will continue to partner with the state for the commercial gas-powered equipment exchange program, and we will be keeping our commitment to the student public transit passes while also expanding our network of EV charging stations. We're also laying the groundwork to expand our air quality efforts and investments in some other areas with an eye toward more empowerment for our city residents. I'm proud to propose the creation of Salt Lake City's first dedicated resident air quality incentive program tonight. The staff and the programming for this initiative will reside in the Sustainability Department, and it will empower our city's residents to make small but powerful changes in their homes and in the way they commute that can add up to an improvement in our air quality and quality of life. This could be battery-powered landscaping equipment to purchasing an e-bike. Our residents will have an easier route to access tools that make a direct impact on improving our local air quality through this new incentive program. Excuse me. As it does for many throughout the state, the Great Salt Lake is ever present at the top of my mind, even after this record-setting winter, which we are now managing in the form of stream runoff. Our namesake's well-being and long-term viability is still critical and urgent. To put it in perspective, just yesterday, University of Utah's Dr. Kevin Perry paid a visit to our office. He told our team something stark, that scientists have done additional research on the data that told us last year that we only had 5 years before the total collapse of the lake. This year's snowpack adds only 2 years to that tally. This reaffirms to me the urgency we have to do more for the lake. In this year's State of the City address in January, I outlined our strategy to protect a contribution of 13 billion gallons of water each year for the lake, put in place a drought surcharge on the highest summer water users, and conduct a top-to-bottom audit of all municipal water use. Tonight, I'm proposing an additional measure that works in tandem with these other efforts. In the next fiscal year, our team will devote resources to fully exploring a concept of a Great Salt Lake shoreline preserve, an idea that was brought to us from a cross-section of residents, advocates, and scientists, including the Audubon Society, the Center for Biological Diversity, Friends of the Great Salt Lake, the Rudy Duck Club, and our West Point Community Council. While establishing such an area would be a multi-year endeavor, our work through the Public Utilities and Community and Neighborhoods departments will explore what it would take to manage and protect more wetlands and more natural areas on the shores of the Great Salt Lake. I want to extend my deep gratitude to the community members who brought this idea forward to our city. This is the kind of creative thinking and committed partnerships that we need to save the lake. The $85 million in Parks, Trails, and Open Space bond that was passed in November by voters will also begin to bear fruit this year. Phase 1 of construction of the Glendale Regional Park is going to begin in just a few months, and I'm excited to see improvements along the Jordan River Parkway Trail, and those will be taking shape as the Emerald Ribbon Master Plan moves forward. We'll also take a deep look at city-owned vacant land, particularly on our city's west side. And you will see us moving to unlock economic development activation where neighborhoods need easier access to fresh food, shops, and services. Later this month, we'll announce the winners of our Ballpark Next competition. That process is well underway with community members, and in the upcoming fiscal year, we'll take steps together to further activate the neighborhood around Smith's Ballpark as we work toward that longer-term vision. Ballpark residents can also expect more activations this coming year through the budget process if it's approved, with community events, future engagement opportunities, and additional city staff to help prepare the upcoming transition in that neighborhood. Another area where city staffers have been hard at work is our roads. The historic winter we all experienced will provide some relief for drought conditions in the west. However, locally, record snowfall wreaked havoc on our city roads. Our snow fighters did a tremendous job keeping our city streets plowed through the winter, and our streets crews have been hard at work repairing the damage due to harsh winter conditions. Earlier this month, we repaired more than 6,000 potholes in 1 week during our first ever pothole palooza. The work of constructing, improving, and maintaining our roads continues to be our priority. Citywide infrastructure improvements continue. While the massive winter season impacted our roads, our crews still improved the quality of our streets by 20%. This budget includes a recommended $10.2 million for transportation projects. That significant investment will fund frequent transit routes, urban trails, traffic circle construction, and traffic signal replacement. And another $10.3 million will go towards sidewalks, alleyway improvements, maintenance, and concrete work. Street safety is so much more than just road conditions. The very design of our streets needs to prioritize the safety of all who use them, including pedestrians and cyclists. And as part of our work to join the Vision Zero network, this budget includes funding for safer crossings, sidewalk improvements, complete streets, livable streets, and neighborhood byways. The last major project from the 2018 Streets Bond is the 21st South Reconstruction Project from 7th East to 13th East, which will begin next spring. We're excited to fulfill the projects outlined in that bond, and we look forward to bringing back a renewal of additional infrastructure bond projects in the third year of our multi-year budget process. I've heard the same jokes as you about road construction in Utah, but the investments we fund make real improvements, and they'll make our residents' lives better, and it's worth it. As a result of our continued recovery from the pandemic, a property tax adjustment last year, and sales tax revenue exceeding expectations, I will not be considering any tax increase in this budget for Salt Lake City residents. A change residents will see is the pre-planned and long-standing public utilities increase for water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure that does amount to about $10 a month for low water users. I want to wrap things up by speaking about the people who make this city run, our public servants. From the person you see filling a pothole on the street to someone signing off on a building permit, the waste and recycling specialist at your curb, or the public utilities team member building a wall of sandbags, firefighters, police officers, 911 dispatch, and librarians. The list goes on. Each is a part of our team of more than 3,000 who are behind the scenes working to improve the quality of life of every resident. They take care of Salt Lakers in often invisible and incredibly crucial ways every day, and this budget aims to take care of them. First, a 5% cost of living adjustment for non-represented employees and market rate adjustments for positions that are lagging behind market wages. This budget also proposes the creation of a new $500 annual lifestyle savings account, which gives employees flexibility in spending for quality of life needs. And this budget aims for a more digitally accessible city than our employees have ever had. With the onset of Workday, it puts every single employee's benefits management in the palm of their hand in many languages. In this recommended budget, you'll see the proposed addition of a total 115 new full-time employees spread across nearly every department. These new positions are critical, and they will support dozens of infrastructure projects and make sure that programs and services can keep pace with our growing city. Tonight, I formally submit my proposed budget to you and to our public for your consideration. The opportunities at our fingertips today have the potential to positively impact the city for generations, to support our communities with our residents at the forefront, to grow our economy, to benefit all, and to help those families who are working too many jobs today connect with the higher paying, economically resilient industries that are growing here. Salt Lake City is ready. We're ambitious in our vision and confident in our budgeting. We've weathered many storms, and we've emerged stronger than ever. I'm so happy to present this year's budget proposal to you with great confidence in our 16 departments who do this work every single day. We look forward to working with you over the coming weeks to process the budget and to keep Salt Lake City moving steadily forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for presenting the budget. As many as you know, the council will spend the next several weeks receiving briefings from each of the departments and discussing the proposed budget before we get ready to adopt the final budget in June. We invite you to the public to tune in and to share your thoughts and to listen to the discussions while those departments present. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, your staff, your incredible team for preparing this thoughtful recommended budget. I was able to find it online, and we got our copy today, so thank you. Now we're going to move to the B section of our agenda, the public hearings. As you might have noticed, we have switched from WebEx to Zoom for our digital platform. Yay to that. With this comes a few changes. If you would like to comment on a public hearing today, we're accepting comments in person and online on Zoom. Isaac Canedo from our staff will moderate our Zoom and will message you with any questions about your registration. Staff is handling many tasks today, so please limit your messages to technical issues you're online and minimal informational updates. If you need to speak to our staff, please select Isaac Canedo from the list of participants. If you need to, you can also raise your hand in Zoom to indicate that you need something from the host. Taylor Hill and our staff will be calling those who wish to comment based on the order of those names received. If you're on Zoom, please unmute your mic when Taylor calls your name. Now we go to item B1, which is regarding an ordinance for the downtown building heights and street activation text amendments. It is Brian Fulmer's time, council staff, policy analyst, to give us a short introduction before we open up for public comment. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposal to amend the city's zoning ordinance related to building heights and pedestrian engagement in the downtown plan area. The administration's proposal also recommends changes to the design standards and design review processes in city code. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks like there are two people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Cindy Cromer, followed by Justin Mackin. Cindy is here in person.
I spoke about this issue at your last meeting. This proposal is not just about the downtown. It would affect every district in the city. I've spoken about problems associated with the FBU and 2 zone for years. The problems started when the city designed the zone for Central 9th but adopted it citywide. At its first application in a historic district, there were 19 interfaces with low-density historic homes without any setbacks required. You are on the brink of repeating the error of looking at one part of the city and making a decision for all neighborhoods. The Central City Historic District now has 2 large areas with this zone, Western Gardens and Trolley Square Ventures. Perhaps you anticipate that the Landmarks Commission can manage the current building frenzy. It cannot. Perhaps you think that one more insult in the death of Central City by 1,000 cuts won't matter. It does. There are 2 things you could do to shut me up. One is remove the FBU and 2 from the proposal. This is pretty drastic, but it would solve the problem I've identified of the changes applying citywide. You could also limit the FBU and 2 to the map that's in your packet. So my point here is that the map is just a portion of the area of the city affected. The changes apply to the entire city. So the second approach would be admittedly complicated, but the proposal is already too complicated. I had to ask for help to confirm that you were looking at only one part of the city but making the change citywide. And you seem to think that with this proposal you can maximize all variables, quality of materials, streetscape, housing which is moderately priced, and you can't. You have to choose which variables you want to maximize And I would urge you to consider less expensive housing that people who work here can afford. Thank you.
Next will be Justin Mackin, who is here in person.
Good evening, City Council members. Justin Matkin. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Parr, Brown, Gee & Lovelace, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Home Depot. The Home Depot currently has a property under contract at between 400 South and 500 South along 5th West, essentially 5.5 acres, which is about half a city block, to build a new Home Depot store. And it's in the general commercial district. The problem with the application of the mid-block, of the downtown building height and street activation update would essentially make permitted uses within the district, the general district, impossible to carry out. And so in this case, for instance, the Home Depot store located within the city block would require a mid-block walkway through the middle of the store, which would make that essentially impossible. You can't have a walkway through the middle of a store. The Home Depot has been working closely with staff to design a compliant store that we believe would bring a lot of great additions to the downtown adjacent area, including rooftop parking, 106,000 square feet store with 24,000 foot garden center. And this type of material supply store, we believe, is needed within the downtown adjacent area. However, the application of these new rules to the general commercial district would essentially make the store impossible, and we would have to abandon the project. I have a letter here that's been drafted by my colleague that presents the issues. I would like to ask that it be made a part of the record. I'm not sure where to deliver it, maybe just on the table. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
And that was the final registered commenter.
Thank you for those that shared their comments. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion on this item? Okay, I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, with Councilmember Petro absent, 6-0. Okay, we're moving along now to item B2, an ordinance regarding a budget amendment number 6 for fiscal year 2022-2023. We have at the table Ben Lucky, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give us a little short introduction before we open for comment. Ben?
There are 29 proposed items in budget amendment number 6. They have a total expenditure of over $50 million. Some of the largest items include $18.6 million of revenue replacement using American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds, $10 million also from ARPA to a nonprofit housing developer for building shared equity housing, $1.3 million for a roof replacement at the Steiner Aquatic Center on Guardsman Way, and $1 million for flood mitigation. The staff report and the administration's proposal are in today's meeting packet. The council has a budget website which is updated throughout the year for each budget amendment. It's available at tinyurl.com/SLC FY23. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Taylor, can we start with those that wish to comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, it looks like there's no one registered to comment on this item.
Is anybody here present that wants to comment on this item? Okay, looking for a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the items to a future date for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this item? Okay, I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion carries 6-0 with Councilmember Petro absent. We're moving along the council agenda. Now we go to item B3, which is a grant application, congestion mitigation and air quality programs, fiscal year 2018 to 2023. Before we start taking comments, we're going to turn the time to Sylvia Richards, who's joining us online, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give us a short introduction. Sylvia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city applies for and receives grants which fund some city programs. Each grant is given a public hearing to allow the public an opportunity to comment on them. And tonight there is one grant, as you mentioned, Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program grant, which would fund the Salt Lake City traffic signal synchronization to minimize the diversion of traffic to local and residential streets by installing radar detection equipment at approximately 31 intersections. And because of the urgency of this item, the council will also consider adopting it with the other consent items during tonight's formal meeting. As a reminder, this is something for which the city has applied. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Any comments, Taylor?
Mr. Chair, it looks like there is one person registered for this item. That will be Tanner Josie, who is here in person.
Hello. So I think addressing air pollution and air quality is totally important in moving forward. And I just want to know how this proposal aims to reduce the reduce emissions. So I understand that the diversion plan would reduce, noise pollution and traffic pollution on those county and, residential roads. But in the wake of, facing major air pollution and air quality disasters, I just want to know how this proposal for the application would address air quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commenters, Taylor?
That was the final registered commenter.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your comment. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer item B3 to tonight's consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Fowler and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this item? I'm going to roll call it all together. Anybody, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody oppose? Okay, this motion carries 6-0. I'm an aye, and Councilmember Petro absent. Now we're moving to the C part of the agenda, potential action items. That brings us to item C1, ordinance regarding homeless resource centers text amendment. We're going to get a little information from Nick Tarvet, our council staff policy analyst, join us online to give us a short introduction. Nick?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to apologize. It may not be very short. There's a little bit of information we just want to make sure everybody's in the loop on. So this is an ordinance. The council is going to consider an ordinance that would establish the process for approving future homeless resource centers, create a homeless resource center overlay zoning district, adopt provisions for temporary and seasonal homeless resource centers, and modify existing standards for homeless shelters. In the recent weeks, there were some concerns expressed about the ordinance requiring HRCs to provide secure storage of firearms. This section of state code that was referenced applies to local and state-owned facilities. The existing HRCs are privately owned and operated. However, some have expressed the interest to require private facilities to provide on-site secure storage if they prohibit firearms. Providers are opposed to this due to the impact to staffing, to the budget, and the need for staff training and handling of firearms. Therefore, staff has provided a few motions for the council to consider. This first one would adopt the text amendment, but not address firearms and would not require a storage option. This motion removes the language related to firearms since the state law applies only to local or state-owned facilities and the existing facilities are privately owned. The second motion would adopt the text amendment and include a provision that if privately owned shelters prohibit firearms inside the building, they must provide the signage at public entrances that firearms are not permitted, detection devices, and they would be required to provide secure storage while the individuals are inside the shelter. This closely mirrors the state statute as it applies to local and state-owned facilities. We do want to note that these changes do not apply to the existing HRCs. They're effectively grandfathered in. And so that's the background on these motions. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Nick, that was actually short. Thank you for summarizing all that. I'm looking for a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair.
But hold on.
Okay.
I think we're waiting for Councilmember Petro is trying to join, but there's some technical difficulties. I'm sorry, I forgot before I ask. Apparently, I have a goldfish memory today. Councilmember Petro will like to join the conversation. So we are going to try to make a few minutes of a pause before we go into a vote and a discussion. See if we can get Councilmember Petro in the conversation, but also being respectful of everybody's time here.
Want to move to the next item?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
So, the effect of removing, if we were to adopt motion 1, the effect of removing the language, any language about firearms would just be that it's entirely up to the facility what regulations they put in place and what the requirements are, storage, signage, all of that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could I? So I think this is a very good question, and I have many questions too also.
Oh,
but
sorry.
I would like, if that's okay, if we can wait a few more minutes, or maybe we jump to a different item. Give me 1 second to.
Oh, sorry. I thought she just wanted to be here for the vote. So,
she wants to be part of the conversation, and I know that she's.
Got it.
I am sorry that I stopped you in that train of thought, and it's a good one. So.
Oh, that's okay. No, I misunderstood. I thought she just wanted to be here for the vote, so I thought I would get a question out.
Rolling my English.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So I think we can move on to the conversation right now. Sorry, Councilmember Warden.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So is that correct? If we adopt motion 1 and remove any language about firearms, it is just up to the facility, whether or not they allow them or not, and if they allow them or if they don't allow them, it's up to them whether they do signage or lockers or whatever.
Or nothing.
Or nothing. Okay.
And motion 2, as is what is currently written, and that is that if it doesn't require anybody to restrict firearms, if it's a private facility, but if they restrict them, then they must do, you said signage, storage, and what else, Nick?
The metal, essentially the detection equipment. So when they enter the facility, they'd be able to, the detection materials would go off, letting people know that they have the firearm.
One thing that I've heard from business owners and people that have worked in or around or have experience with the Gail Miller Resource Center, I attend their neighborhood advisory committee, is that oftentimes people who have weapons will stash them outside of the facility before going in, and that creates a potential for a child to find a firearm or a knife or anything. And so when that was originally added in, I was really excited about it. I understand the service providers are nervous about staffing, but it feels like that could be better managed. It may need some funding, but it could be better managed by trained people in the facility than by stashing things in bushes. But I think that's the question we're being asked.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
The language here says detection devices. So again, that could be up to the individual HRC to determine what that device sort of looks like. So for example, it doesn't necessarily have to be the like thing you walk through. It could potentially just be a security guard with a wand that would then, right? So we're not like dictating what that device looks like. It would be up to the individual potential HRC, right?
Yeah.
I'm taking that as a yes, Nick, because that was to you.
Yes, sorry, I apologize.
You don't have to talk. I'll just put it on the record for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and also going on Councilmember Fowler's point there, that detective device could be actually, they could have a storage facilities before you get that. Here's, you can lock up your stuff here, and then you walk through the wand. So it all depends on the facilities, how they want to handle that detection and or storage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I share the same thought as far as this goes, and I want to just bring it up here to everybody about our shelters or our resource centers need to be a place where everybody is welcome, even if they are carrying a weapon. Now, do we want the weapon inside the facility? No. So there has to be a mechanism to store this. And I know that there is difficulties and there is concerns about funding and how this will work, but I've actually seen this in other states. I know that at this moment it seems like something very complicated to solve, and this is something that is about a hypothetical shelter that might come to our city. But I think that by not doing it, we're incentivizing the stashing of weapons around a resource center, and I don't think any of us want that as an intended consequence of not allowing this. So I'm for keeping that language in the ordinance at the moment. Other comments, Petro?
Forgive me if this is a repetition of things that were said before. I think number one, we're trying to make square pegs fit round holes. We've heard from numerous providers, numerous stakeholders, that congregant shelters are not necessarily what we need more of. Dignified options that provide safety but are still low barrier to entry are much more needed at this point. And it seems like this is one piece of evidence that we're running into repeated problems trying to make the congregate shelter the panacea for the response to this crisis. The other thing is, while the unsheltered are certainly among our most vulnerable constituents, they are not our only constituents. And I was unaware of the stashing because it's not in my neighborhood. And that is my privilege to not have that experience. But it does feel like if we're going to invite in more congregate shelters, we should be setting a tone early that the community around those congregate shelters is valued and important, and finding ways to allow firearms and weapons to be safely stored while the people who need the care can get it is a nice balance to let people know that your kids aren't going to find switchblades or firearms in a bush necessarily out front. And this seems to strike a nice balance. It's not that those who are unsheltered shouldn't have access to those things. It's that this is the balance between protecting them and the community around them. So I'm in favor of keeping it at this point.
Mr. Chair, oh, sorry, anyone else? Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt the ordinance subject to the following changes. Specify that if privately owned HRCs or shelters prohibit firearms from within the building, they must provide signage at public entrances that firearms are not permitted and detection devices, and provide secure storage while the individual is inside the HRC or shelter. I further move the council adopt the legislative intent and legislative action on page 2 of the motion sheet.
Second. Oh.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Fowler. Any further discussion on this item? I think I'm going to call the question individually. Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Petro?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This is 7-0. The ordinance moved forward.
Mr. Chair, may I just, for the sake of the public, mention that the legislative intent and action that we adopted has to do with collecting data so that we can inform our future decisions, as well as looking into requiring SEPTED review for these facilities by the planning administrator.
Thank you for that clarification. And if you want to receive a copy of that legislative intent, we can make you one. We're going now to item C2, which is the ordinance rezone at 792 West, 900 South, and 875 South, 800 West. We're going to get a motion going. Anybody?
Make a motion. Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance, including that the applicant record a restrictive covenant limiting the building height to 35 feet.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion? Okay, I am going to call the question to all of us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Now motion carries 7-0. Now we're going to go to the general comment section of the agenda. As a reminder of those that are joining us through Zoom, Isaac Canedo from our staff will moderate our Zoom and will message you with if you have any questions about your registration. The staff is handling a lot of things, so please limit your message to technical issues or minimal information updates. If you do need to speak with our staff, please select Isaac Canedo from the list of participants. If you also need to talk to the council staff, you can also raise your hand on Zoom. Taylor Hill from our staff will be calling those who wish to comment based on the order of registration or when we receive the comment card. If you are on Zoom, please unmute your mic when Taylor calls your name. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time, and your microphone will be muted. If you are unable to finish your comment, please send the rest of your comment by email, mail, or call our office to put it on the record. And if you are in this room right here and wish to comment and you haven't filled out your card, please raise your hand and the staff will get you one of those. Please, Taylor, begin with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks like there are 12 people registered for general comment. The first will be Arthur Moss, followed by Christina Robb, and then Rebel. Arthur is here in person.
Good evening. I have a nonprofit here in Salt Lake that's trying to provide affordable housing and deeply affordable housing to help people transitioning out of the homeless shelters and to prevent people from losing their housing that are in the $30,000 to $65,000 a year salary range. I'd be interested in working with Mayor Mendenhall on her proposal and on your meetings today with the $10 million you're considering for perpetual housing fund. I'd be in support of that as well and be willing to work with anybody as an equity partner on that. Thank you.
Next is Christina Robb, followed by Rebel, and then Wendy Garvin. Christina is here in person.
Good evening. My name is Christina Robb, and I serve as the current chair of East Liberty Park Community Organization. ELPCO appreciates the focus on data-driven policymaking. It's fundamental to build community-centered and supportive policies. Tonight, I would like to highlight the indisputable fact that a crucial aspect of data analysis is the functional review of hard data and numbers, as summary data, by its nature, includes the perspective and unconscious biases of those making the summaries. As an example of this, I refer to recent ADU affordability data that relies on self-reporting from property owners rather than going the extra step to cross-analyze information of the same numbers based on data collected from renters. In addition, ELPCO requests that you take the critical steps necessary to make hard data available and minimize the potential for bias. In the same vein, ELPCO has been advocating for affordable housing, safe housing, elevated building code enforcement, and enhanced renter rights. We ask you to prioritize local rental research in all our neighborhoods and to support projects like the Mayor's Perpetual Housing Fund. We also request that you consider supporting home ownership and wealth development for average and lower income citizens by incentivizing density in the form of condominiums and townhouses offered for purchase. Thank you.
Next will be Rebel, followed by Wendy Garvin, and then Joshua Mellowseed Story. Rebel is here in person.
I'm a vet in the Marine Corps. I've been up here since '07. I survived barely because there's not enough housing or places for us to go. Because when Road Home was here, it was the staff there was just there to collect a check. From what I've seen at these other ones, they're the same way. We need people in places like that that actually care. I mean, I volunteer the same business when I can. I just wish more people would do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Next will be Wendy Garvin, followed by Joshua Mellowseed Story, and then Casina Kanasiba. Wendy is here in person.
Hi, I'm Wendy Garvin. I'm the Executive Director of Unsheltered Utah. Today, I heard a $440 million budget proposal. Today is the same day that the last of 600 people were kicked out of the shelters after winter overflow. All of those people, the only option that was given to them was street camping. So on the same day that we're proposing to spend $440 million, we are actively kicking people out to camp on the streets around your homes. I heard during that proposal that there was free land in the city that is going to be used to address economic development. But I heard just last week that we're asking other municipalities to come up with the space for an outdoor shelter or a sanctioned campground. So if there's space, why aren't we using it for our most critical issues right now today? Let's talk about that budget. For policing, I see proposed $110 million, including $7.2 million just for the chief's office. For information technology, there's $17 million. For the mayor's staff, $6.8 million. So last year, y'all allocated $6 million for affordable housing, and I approve of that, I support that. That is a good step in the right direction. But to give you some idea of how far that money goes, the most recent building that is about to open any day, we hope, the Fair Park Point, cost $12 million just to purchase the building, and that doesn't count the approximately $4 million of renovations that were needed to get it up and running, or the ongoing staff costs to keep it running. So $6 million is a drop in the bucket, and when we compare it against a $440 million budget, or even a $110 million policing budget, we see it as the drop in the bucket that it really is. I appreciate the intent, but I think we need to be doing a whole lot more if we're going to say that we support affordable housing.
Time.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Joshua Mellowseed Story, followed by Casina Kanasiba, and then Daniel Taylor. Joshua is here in person.
Hi, I'm the Director of Outreach for the Nomad Alliance.
I just wanted to talk about like the sanctioned campground thing, and that it should be really given some thought. I work with homeless a lot and do the outreach, and most of them will not go to shelters because of how they're structured. And there's a lot of violence that happens. Women have like reported being raped at these things. You know, there's people doing drugs in the bathroom, all kinds of like, nobody wants to go there that actually wants to get off the street. That's like what the sanctioned campground, and it has worked for other cities, is about giving people a safe place where they can have their own space, they can camp, there can be resources that we provide for them to get them working and off the street, and just give them an opportunity to do it, because without a safe place to go, that's not a real opportunity for them to actually get off of the street. And most of them don't want to be on the street. Some people do choose it. The majority of them don't want to. They don't know how to get off the street. They get abated. I feel like, a lot of money is wasted on the abatements as well. And it could definitely go towards other things that actually help. Because abating doesn't help. All it does is shuffle people around. They go to another camp, and then all the resources that are donated through grassroots get thrown away. So it's also putting a strain on the organizations that are grassroots and do it by all volunteer. And so that's just kind of my point. Thank you for your time.
Next will be Casina Kanasiba, followed by Daniel Taylor, and then MJ Powell. Casina is here in person.
Hi guys, I hope you're not sick of hearing from me. I just want to say thank you again to the City Council, Councilman Mano, Fowler, Wharton, Victoria Petreshler, Pui, and Alejandro Pui, and Analia have all attended our supply drives. I just want to say thank you so much. Analia brought great empanadas. I want to highlight Ms. Petro-Eschler's comment that trying to make a congregate shelter the panacea when it is obviously not working for everyone is doing the same thing expecting a different result, and that's the definition of stupidity. We're wasting so much money when there are cheaper, more viable options that people want. People are camping out on in tents in the middle of winter because they'd prefer that, because everyone deserves a right to privacy. Also, these abatements, $10 million on the abatements annually. I mean, if people had a place to go, then you could save that much money. You can invest in education, whatever else, more affordable housing, $2.2 million just police and police overtime. That just seems insane to me. And we're a fiscally responsible state. We're good at economics. We can do better. Involuntary displacement causes people to be disconnected from health care services and increases their risk of overdose and death. 151% increase in overdose mortality. 151%. 50% increase in hospitalizations. And you guys know how expensive it is to go to the ER. So that just seems insane. We can do better. Sanctioned campground, Santa Cruz model, allowing people to park in business lots, in religious lots, in side yards, backyards, provided the person is open to that, and the community is open to that. We can do better, guys, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time.
Next will be Daniel Taylor, followed by MJ Powell, and then Brandy Woodward. Daniel is here in person.
So I believe that non-congregate housing options are the key to help resolve the homeless crisis. In my experience, there are not enough shelters for the capacity of the amount of homeless in the winter, and individuals are freezing because of overflow, are being pushed away because of fair weather conditions in spring and summer, and constant abatements are losing their belongings year-round. I believe people become motivated when in the company with others who share common experience, regardless of trauma or achievement, and become hopeless when unable to take personal initiative and have to constantly ask for help from others. Non-congregate options such as tiny home communities and sanctioned campgrounds allow people to come together and have a hand at building their own future personally and grow together as a like-minded group with similar goals. The answer to addiction isn't necessarily sobriety. The answer to addiction is connection. Give the people a chance to earn their own solution together. They need a place to start.
Next will be MJ Powell, followed by Brandy Woodward, and then Alex Stewart. MJ, you may now unmute.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is MJ, Equity Advocate and former Youth Commissioner for the Salt Lake City Racial Equity and Policing Commission. I'm here today to express my strong support for Mayor Aaron Mendenhall's 2024 budget proposal. This will address economic development, affordable housing, renewable energy, police reform initiatives, and support for folks experiencing homelessness, which are all critical for creating a more equitable and just city. Firstly, I believe that Mayor Mendenhall's initiatives require multi-government cooperation to be successful. The city cannot address these cities alone. We need the support and cooperation of county, state, and federal government leaders to make significant progress towards our goals. Secondly, I want to emphasize the importance of funding to support our population of folks experiencing homelessness. Mayor Mendenhall's proposed funding for homeless services will be critical for providing essential resources and support for our most vulnerable community members. These services will include outreach programs, temporary shelters, and long-term housing solutions. By teaming up and collaborating with state and other cities and providing these solutions, we can help people experiencing homelessness identify the long-term resources they need to get back on their feet while contributing to our community. Lastly, I support the mayor's proposals for police reform. As a former racial equity and policing commissioner and Black Lives Matter activist, I understand the importance of building trust between police departments and the communities they serve. Her proposed measures such as increasing community engagement, training officers in de-escalation techniques and crisis intervention training, hiring as well as promoting more diversity within the department, and lastly, being proactive and demanding transparency. And I again reiterate, proactive and demanding transparency will help to ensure that all law enforcement officers and community members operate with accountability and fairness. In conclusion, I urge you to support Mayor Mendenhall's 2024 budget proposal. It is essential to work together, continuing to acknowledge historical injustices such as historical redlining and share equal responsibility.
Next will be Brandy Woodward, followed by Alex Stewart, and then Bernie Hart. Brandy is here in person.
Hi, my name is Brandy Woodard, and I just wanted to talk about sanctioned campgrounds and why. I was homeless for off and on for about 5 years. Oops, sorry. And I refused to go to a shelter because of all the drama there, the drug use there, and theft, among other reasons. The last 9 months of my homeless, adventure per se, I was pregnant with him. And, not everyone's as lucky as I was, but I had 2 people from the Nomad Alliance find me, and they were able to get me in a house. Not everyone is that lucky, so they're still sheltered in tents and in RVs that just keep being abated every time they move somewhere else. Sorry. Anyway, but I think that's why sanctioned campgrounds would be amazing, because it would not only save lives, but it would save the state of Utah money, because they wouldn't have to keep shelling out all of the money to the government agencies that are part of the abatements.
Next will be Alex Stewart, followed by Bernie Hart, and then Carl Moore. Alex is here in person.
Hi, my name is Alex Stewart. I have a question. In the fall, the city awarded $6 million to finishing up housing projects to provide over 400 units of deeply affordable housing, and those units were intended to provide a bridge to housing for people experiencing homelessness, timed in such a way that the completion of these units would coincide with the closure of the temporary winter overflow shelters. My question is, how many of these units are now completed, And more importantly than that, how many of these units have been moved into? Because this isn't about making more housing units, it's about giving people housing. I have a feeling that we're not very close to those over 400 units. I would like some clarification on that. I think one of the root challenges that's affecting the HRCs and these homeless service providers is that we're stretching these emergency services beyond their effective usage window. We have a subset of individuals who are in these HRCs for months and years at a time, locked out of the housing market opportunities, and we're trying to use emergency services for mid to long-term care, and that's just, it starts to fall apart, right? And I think that this is leading to this tension, right? Like we can feel it, like the stuffiness of this old building that's trying not to be a stuffy old building. Like right alongside that is the tension in this room surrounding this issue. And I believe that that tension is the result of a discrepancy that exists between the emergency service providers being stretched too thin and the lack of the deeply affordable housing to meet the demand. So I hope that you can continue to have these conversations about how to bridge this gap. And more importantly, you know, I think the most pressing one right now is what are we going to do for the hundreds of people that just lost access to those overflow shelter beds? Thanks.
Next will be Bernie Hart, followed by Carl Moore, and then Tom Callagher. Bernie is here in person.
I wouldn't want your job for anything. There's a lot of caring people in this room. Daniel, you did a great job. And there's a lot of people that care, and there's a lot of people that care in every city across the country. And it's a common problem that we all share and nobody's found a solution for. And we're never going to spend our way out of this problem. You don't have enough money to spend it because the answers that we have that exist today just aren't solving the problem. The core problem is mental health issues and addiction problems. And until we get an answer to those problems, you don't have enough money in the state of Utah to deal with this problem. So the focus, I think, should be something that we're going to start talking about out in the public. And the zero represents the amount of data that you, not just you, the entire homeless system across the country has on the effectiveness of different programs. It doesn't exist. We do not know how to deal with addictions. We do, on a level that it is going to be impactful. We don't know how to deal with recidivism in our jails. We don't know how to deal with nothing related to this problem. That is created what I am starting to call institutional ignorance. And that I don't want to say in a blamey way because it's just a fact. We are ignorant. We do not have a solution to the problem. And the sooner we recognize that fact and we start looking for new solutions, we can move beyond the institutionalization of ignorance and start looking and finding answers. But the problem is, too often ignorance is bliss. It gives us a solution or pretend we have solutions. It makes us feel good about ourselves. But that's not good enough anymore. We have to move in a new direction. We have to admit we don't have the answers, and we have to start solving this problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernie.
Next will be Carl Moore, followed by Tom Callagher. Carl is here in person.
All right, so I'm going to piggyback off of that ignorance is bliss because it's my belief that the United States of America is born on ignorance, and everybody here has a level of ignorance that they don't recognize. And because I'm seeing a lot of conceptualizations of things, and one of them, someone's talking, Victoria, you're talking about firearms, and I wonder how many of us think about our neighbors having a firearm? Like, does that ever come up? Do we think about that? No, I know, but are we saying something about that? Can we have firearms in Salt Lake City? Yes. A person that's living on the street, can they have a firearm? Yes. What I'm saying is if a community is concerned about this firearm, and this is not even what I want to talk about, but I'm just talking about perspective. If a person is living on the streets, do they have a different right or non-right to have a firearm. That's what I'm saying. I basically want to talk about whitewashed tombs, and I want to talk about ourselves and the way that we think about ourselves and the way we present ourselves, because I'm thinking about this budget that's been proposed and all these great things about this city, and it's like, it's all whitewashed tombs. It's all pretty facades. It's all like, look at all of these things, when at the heart of it is we are not taking care of people. We're not taking care of people, and we're not allowing people a place to be safe. And that's really what the key part of this whole thing is about, a place to be safe. And the biggest, I think that the city has so many resources and places and land to accommodate these things. And again, it's a matter of like, people have this privilege to think, oh, well, I bought this house, I bought this place. Well, you bought it and it was stolen, and it's not even your place, and you're all squatters. So why are you not allowing other people who you consider squatters to be living in a place? And again, like, this is all y'all privilege. This is my privilege too. Is like, oh, he's talking about these things, but you're not going to do a dang thing about it. I'm just here to kind of present, maybe think about yourself and your whitewashed tombness.
Next will be Tom Gallagher. Tom is here in person.
My name's Tom Gallagher. I've been homeless since I was 18 years old. This last few days, I've watched them kick out hundreds of females onto the streets. I watched a lady that was mute trying to communicate to security and staff that she needed to do something, and they wouldn't listen, and she bashed her head through a window because they had no concern whatsoever. I watched another lady. She's the sweetest person I know in the world. She has a bladder infection, and she needed to use the bathroom, and they knew this, and they refused to let her in the building. These things are just travesties, and we're kicking them all out on the streets. She's living out on the streets now, both of them. They're wandering. You know, this is the type of things that we're doing to us. And it just has to stop. People need to stop and look at what's going on, you know, and address it. Everybody talks about big budgets and all that. You know, let's talk about a budget that stays rather than being allocated somewhere else 5 minutes later, because it's all crap. You know, and I'm speaking from experience because I've seen it over and over again. It's just hard to see what we've become, you know, as humans. You know, nobody looks inside themselves and finds any compassion anymore. I just watched a man out here on the sidewalk, driving down the road, and he says, oh, it's a city council meeting. They're talking about homeless. And he goes, yeah, look, there's a homeless guy. F you. Really? What is that? You know? Yeah, I'm homeless. But you know what? I go out here and I fight for people that are homeless every day. You know? I help them every day.
Time.
And it's, you know, it's just hard. Thank you.
That was the final registered commenter.
Okay. Anybody else wants to share the comment to the council? Okay. There is a gentleman right there. Do you want to state your name and go to share your comment? Oh, there's a couple.
Hello.
Your name for the record.
My name is Brandon. I don't use that name. It's a long story. I'm not gonna have time to talk about that. I don't really have a lot to say that hasn't been said as far as action that should be taken. I would like to talk about, for a second, I've lost too many people to suicide, to murder, to simply being left behind. They froze to death, or they starved, or they died in the heat. And you know, maybe we wouldn't have to be here having this conversation if those things could be addressed, you know, in a proactive way. I've lived in a lot of different cities, often homeless. I got my first apartment in 2020. And I don't think it's all about money. You know, that guy's homeless because he's addicted to drugs. He doesn't have money because he's addicted to drugs. I think it's about mental health as well. And I don't think enough people are addressing the problems of mental health. I think in order to combat the problem of homelessness and drug addiction and all these problems that we're talking about, we also have to talk about mental health. And I hear people all the time that they're not getting help.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Crosswhite. I'm the CEO at the Rescue Mission of Salt Lake, which is a church that provides homeless services for 52 plus years in downtown Salt Lake City, with facilities that range from Ogden to Murray. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, just observing. I apologize. I didn't fill out one of those pieces of paper. Council members in Mayor Mendenhall, as you know, homelessness is a phenomenally complex issue. And if it was easy, we would have solved it already. We would have. And it's going to continue to be a phenomenally complex issue. My encouragement to you as our city leaders is to don't look for one approach for homeless services, but to look for broad approaches, as many approaches as we can possibly identify to help human beings who are hurting. Housing, phenomenal. Affordable housing, phenomenal. Housing first, phenomenal. Inpatient recovery, phenomenal. Mental health, phenomenal. Medical health, phenomenal. Employment training, phenomenal. We need all of these and many, many more to address this issue. Please realize as well that you can make things so completely complicated to provide homeless services that you are guaranteeing that yourselves as the city and the county will be the homeless service providers instead of private entities. You can make it that complicated, and there are repercussions to decisions you're making. I was in the room with Mayor McAdams, with the county, when Mayor McAdams and his staff and city staff guaranteed that homeless diversion programs, one more minute please, not a minute, that the homeless diversion programs would be so successful that we could take 400 emergency shelter beds offline when we moved the road home.
Thank you for your...
And that was not achieved. Thank you. Agreed.
Thank you everybody for your comments. I really appreciate all these very complex issues. Now, to continue on the agenda, we're moving to agenda item E1, which is a resolution, interlocal agreement, and memorandum for 2023 election services. Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council approve a resolution for an election services interlocal cooperation agreement between Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County for the 2023 municipal general election.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Fowler and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this item? I'm going to roll call this all together. So all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So we're moving now to the next item, E2, a resolution naming the Salt Lake International Airport Greeting Room for the Senator Garn Greeting Room.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilwoman Fowler, Valdemoros, I'm sorry. All those, any discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair, just no, go ahead.
You have discussion on this item? After? Okay. Maybe I don't let you do that after. So, okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? So that motion passes 7-0. Now to your 30 seconds.
I just want to say thank you to the Senator Gardner for all his work in the state and in the city. And also I want to thank a resident of District 6, Kimball Young, for all his work in making this action happen. So appreciate that very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I've been muting myself so I don't sneeze on the microphone. The next item is E3, the resolution local emergency declaration extension for flooding. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the council approves the extension of Proclamation 1 of 2023 from the date of this resolution until June 30th, 2023, unless later extended or terminated by subsequent resolution of the council, or unless terminated pursuant to state law.
Second.
To have a motion by Councilwoman Fowler and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this item? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That was loud.
Sorry.
Any opposed? Okay, this motion carries 7-0. We're moving now to unfinished business. Item F1, a resolution tentative budget of Salt Lake City, including the tentative budget of the library fund for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Mr. Chair.
I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council approve a resolution adopting the tentative budget for Salt Lake City, Utah, including the tentative budget of the library fund for fiscal year 2023 to 24.
I have a motion, and we know what we need. A second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this item? Okay, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. Now we're going to the consent agenda, item G. I will need a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Dugan. All of those in favor, any discussion on this? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We were a little slow today. Any opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Now we're going to the LBA agenda. Okay. We now convene as the body of the local building authority. So we're just switching hats, and we are moving to the agenda item I1, which is the opening ceremony. The board will approve meeting minutes of May 18, 2021, June 1, 2021, June 15, 2021, August 17, 2021, May 3rd, 2022, May 17, 2022, June 7, 2022, and June 14, 2022. I need a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this item? All of those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes 7-0. We're moving on to item J1 of the LBA agenda, which is unfinished business. Resolution for a tentative budget for the capital projects fund of the local building authority for fiscal year 23 and 24.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council approve a resolution adopting the tentative budget for the capital projects fund of the local building authority for fiscal year 2023 through 24.
Second.
I made that up, so I hope I said that right.
That's it. Okay. Sounded right. So, okay, so all of those, I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Now we are,
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn as the local building authority and convene as the redevelopment agency board.
Second.
a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Werner and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion? Mano, sorry.
We look the same.
You guys look very similar. Today, it's dyslexia, please. Forgive me. I didn't want to tell all Salt Lake City. I'm like, no. So, motion by Councilmember Wharton and second by Councilmember Mano. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. And now we are convened as the redevelopment agency of Salt Lake City. Today is a very special place because we have all of these different meetings that we're going through. Just a reminder for everybody doing budget, we meet early to discuss the budget and to go through all of this. So, on Tuesdays usually, we start at 2, but sometimes earlier. So please stay in tune on when we are discussing the budget and what we're doing. So now go to, we are at item L1 of the RDA unfinished business agenda. This is the resolution to a tentative budget for the redevelopment agency of Salt Lake City for fiscal year 23 and 24. I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the tentative budget for the redevelopment agency of Salt Lake City for fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Mano. Any discussion on this item? Okay, all of those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. Now we're going to adjourn. And that was it. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thanks, John.
All right. Woohoo.